Hi everyone, and welcome to the Purl Girl Knits podcast, episode 13. I'm Catherine, your host. Thank you so much if you're a returning viewer. It means a lot to me that you come back every time to watch me out. And if you're a new viewer, well, welcome, and I really hope that you will enjoy this podcast. You can find me under Instagram and Ravelry under Purl Girl Knits, and you can also go on the Ravelry groups page to find the Purl Girl Knits podcast group. This episode will be quite shorter than normally, simply because I've put all my effort and time on the same project to get them done, and a lot of that time, I mean a lot of that time, actually went on my cross-stitch stocking because I kind of wanted to get it done before the end of the weekend, which I did accomplish. So let's start with knitting first. I have one finished pair of socks and one pair of socks on the go, so work in progress. I will show you the first one, which is the finished object, which is the Star Wars socks. And yeah, I mean, everybody that knows me. First, those socks are for my partner because he's a huge Star Wars fan, and he is a tall man, and he has really long feet, and so my sock blockers are way too short for him. But oh well, we're just gonna go with it. So those socks are from Mustache Yarns, and they were the Perfect Sock Self-Striping Star Wars Edition. They were the limited edition part 3, 2 fugitive, a mercenary, and a princess going to a bar into the Boba Fett colorway. This is the 75-25 superwash merino nylon with 440 yards in 100 gram skeins. And basically when you got that, you had the choice of having two perfectly matching half skeins, so basically two 50 gram skeins that were identical, or having two different 50 gram skeins. So you could have had a Boba Fett and a Chewbacca, for example, and just mix and match them, or do whatever you want with it, basically. I've chose the perfectly matching two skeins, and I have to say, it was amazing. It really, truly was amazing to knit with this yarn. Her yarn is amazing. Her stripes are gorgeous. And the fact that you have two 50 gram skeins and not have to worry about where you need to go after you finish your first socks and just find where you would need to be to have a perfectly matching one is kind of really, really nice. So here we go. I did a rounded toe, and then I've knit a tube for an afterthought heel, and then I did 20 rows of 1x1 ribbing, and I decided to go for my afterthought heel. It was my first time ever doing an afterthought because I'm always doing a fish lip kiss heel. This is my heel. Yeah. But because it's a self-striping, I didn't want to do a fish lip kiss heel because I didn't want it to have a weird patterning on the heel. So I did a afterthought heel. I believe my partner likes this heel better than the fish lip kiss heel after trying those socks, but he hasn't really wear them yet. So we'll have to see after he actually wears them for a day. And go from there. But because I did actually restrain him to wear them until I podcast, because he did wanted to wear them as soon as they were done. Again. And I've saved them just for you guys. Which he will probably wear them tomorrow as soon as this podcast is over. So here is my afterthought heel. And I did because there's, at least as far as I know, maybe there's more, but as far as I know, there is two methods for the afterthought heel. You can do the scrap piece of yarn into your tube when you knit, or you can actually go and cut the yarn directly. I decided to go with the cut the yarn directly, which did actually make me really nervous because this is a limited edition yarn, and if I do anything wrong to it, there's no way I can get another one. I mean, I guess I could maybe like private message her and see, but I was really scared just because of that. And it ended up being great. And I think that from now on, every time that I need to do an afterthought heel, I think I'm just going to go and cut the yarn, because it's super simple. It's not complicated at all. And the reason why I decided to go with the cutting yarn method is because a lot of people say that when you use the scrap yarn, you do end up with like little gaps in the corners, in the joints, and that you have to, or like pick up extra stitches, and when you weave in the ends, weave in like those little holes that you get, and you don't have this. You don't have this at all with this method. And so I will link in my show notes the YouTube video that I used for it, in case anybody's interested into cutting their yarn. It is scary, I have to say, because anytime that you have to cut the yarn, we all love the yarn that we use, and so cutting it out is pretty scary, but after you did it once, it's fairly basic, and it's really easy. And so I have a final pair. Both socks are done, ends are weaved in, and as I said previously, he will probably wear those tomorrow as soon as he knows that the podcast has been recorded. And now for my whips, I do have my monthly mystery sock along sock for the month of May on the needles right now. I have one sock completed and one on the go. So here is the complete socks. Isn't this pretty? I am so happy, so happy with those socks. Ironically, my partner didn't know. Like, he put yarn in 2 bags, and that's the extent of what he knew. I think he kind of went with, she might really want this yarn for this month for any particular reason. And so I think he selected like 2 or 3 that were a little bit more specific in his mind, and then the rest was completely just random. The thing that is ironic about this is that I bought those 2 yarn literally exactly a year ago in May from last year. I bought it in May when I was on a family trip to Florida, and my sister and I went into a local yarn shop and buy yarn, because that's what you do when you're on vacation and exploring, right? Everybody does that. And so I bought those in May. So I've had those yarn for exactly a year now, and I find it so funny that it ended up in my May bag. But I love them. I love them both, and I'm kind of sad that after this pair of sock, I'm not gonna have any more of this yarn, but I guess it's life, right? Let's appreciate it while it's being knit at the moment. And so I've done for those a rounded toe with 5 rows of white after the last rows of the rounded toe. I did 65 rows up, a fish lip kiss heel. I think I did 40. I'll put it down below, the exact number, but I think I did 40. And I did 1 row of white when I joined into my main color before I started the ribbing, because I didn't want my purl to be in the main color. I wanted both knit and purls to be in the white. So I did 1 row of plain knits and 15 rows of 1x1 twisted rib. I did, so here's the yarn. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this. And it is the Arne and Carlos edition. And I've been looking for this yarn for so long, and I couldn't get it. And so when I saw it, when I was over there, they had a 150-gram ball of this color left. And this is the color that I was looking for a long time. And so what I decided to do was to actually get the 50-gram and then get 2 minis, 1 for each socks, and then do a contrasting toe heel and cuffs to kind of balance it out. I also didn't want it to be too shredded and too tight in my yardage, so I decided to go with like about 22 to 23 grams per socks of the main color, just to make sure that I would for sure have enough on the second sock, because I knit one sock at a time. And yeah, so this is the color 03657. And this is 230 yards per 50 gram skeins. And I have the second one on the way. I was knitting on it this morning, and I just finished my 65 rows of the main color, and I was about to attach the heel, and so I just wanted to wait until the podcast was done before I attached the fish lip kiss heel, so that I'm not in a wonky position with my needles. One thing that I forgot to mention on the Star Wars socks, but as well for those socks, I am knitting those on my 2.5 Knitter's Pride fixed circular. And everybody that knows me or that has been watching this podcast for a little bit knows that I'm not a fan of wooden needles. This is simply just a preference. There's nothing wrong with wooden needles. It is just not my preference. And so I will get back to this towards the end of this episode. And the second color, so the white that you have over here, I have 1 mini per socks, and 1 mini is it's on their seedling base, I would guess. 90% superwash merino, 10% nylon. It is 60 yard for 18 grams in the color natural, and it is the fiber seed. They have a website that you can go. I really, really like this yarn, I have to say. It's a nice, sturdy, but still soft yarn. And with 1 mini, so 1 18-gram skein, I did the toe, the heel, the cuff. I've crocheted 1 hexagon out of it, and I still have a little bit left. It's not a lot, but it's still a little bit. And so I think I will try to make an hexagon out of this one. So I have 2 hexagon out of it, and take the leftover from my second sock, so my second mini, and put this in my magic knot ball that I'm doing. That's going to be a plan. Now we'll see if I can make an hexagon out of this little skein ball. So last project to show you this episode is my cross-stitch stocking that I was working on. And so it is the Jolly Trio stocking by Dimension Kits. And so I finished the cross-stitch part of it. Eventually, when I'll have my sewing machine out, I will transform it into a stocking. But for the moment, the cross-stitch part of it is done, which was actually what I was planning on trying to finish before the 15th of May. And because the 15th of May is the start of the Sweetest Pie Stitch Along, I'm really excited about this. So I don't know, like there's nothing wrong with having both projects on at the same time at all. I just kind of wanted to get it done so that I can concentrate on something else. And so since this is my main project and it's now done, I will talk later about what will be my future projects coming up. So here we go. Here you go. All done and complete. So let me get it closer to you guys. Ta-da! So I did a few modifications to this chart. The main one that I've done is the white section, because as you can see, there is a lot of white. First for the snowman, and then you also have the snow on the floor, the white of the penguin. There's a little bit in the mouse, but nothing. I think it's really not a lot. But mostly all of the snowman and the snow there and the penguin. And I wanted to have a full coverage for this, knowing that a 2/1 on a 14 count Aida doesn't necessarily give you a full coverage depending on the color that you use, especially blacks and whites are hard to get a full coverage for. And so what I've done is that instead of doing a 2/1 on a 14 count Aida, I decided to go 3/1 for it all, and it gave me a really, really nice coverage. Another changes that I do, but it's something that I did on my other stocking by mistake, and it's something that I want to keep, is for the eyes and the nose. Because it's black and you don't necessarily get full coverage, because as you see in the hat, I don't know if you can actually see this, but you don't get a full coverage, and you do see the fabric behind it, and I didn't want this for the eyes. And so what I do is that I basically do a normal cross stitch 2/1 twice. Instead of doing 4/1, which is also doable, but I think that 3 is starting to be bulky for a stitch, and so I didn't want it to go over that. So what I do is that I do 2/1 and I do 1 full cross stitch, and then I re-stitch it on top of this, like I would normally do a cross stitch if there was nothing underneath it. And basically what it allows is that if your 2 flosses are here and being the bump of the cross, if you are restitching on top of it, it kind of gets in between, like on each side or wherever the bump is not there. So it gives me a good coverage, and that's what I want. And it makes it a little bit bulkier, and I like it because it's an eye or a nose, and it's kind of stand out a little bit more in the face than it does with the rest of the face. So I've changed that too. I don't know if I take it. Oop. I don't know if you see it. Another thing that I've done, there was a lot of French knot in there that I didn't felt the need to have. They didn't added anything more to me, in my opinion. And so I left out a lot of the French knots that were in the pattern, and I kept the ones that are on the little buttons here to do the buttonholes. I've kept those because those has a really good purpose on there. And one of the last things that I've changed is on this top border over here. There is a back stitching that kind of links all the little balls together, but it can't be perfectly centered with the little balls because of the stitch numbers that you have for the balls. And so I didn't want it to have a straight line that was actually not centered with it, and being off center, it would have. And so therefore I did just a really tiny zigzag in there to kind of balance it out a little bit more. And so here we go. This is done. And as you see, I had a lot done compared to what I had last week. And this is why I don't have too many things to show you this episode, because a lot of my time went on cross-stitching this. And I started it on January 1st because it was one of my things that I wanted to start stitching on January 1st. And I just felt that we are now at the middle of May. And so it was just kind of fair that it was gonna get done. So in the next few weeks, my goals, my crafty goals, are to finish my May socks, which should happen in the next few days, realistically. I will start the Sweetest Pie stitch along on Monday. I will then I'm kind of debated if I should start the Zelda map cross stitch or the Santa's cross stitch. Kind of debating. I feel like the Santas will be great to travel throughout the summer, but I feel like the Zelda map it's going to be something that's going to take me so long to do that if I start a little bit now, I don't know. I'll see that. I'll see which one I start. One thing's for sure is that I will start and cross out like all the center and all that stuff on my Zelda map fabric, on my Santa's fabric, and as well on my Sweetest Pie fabric, and just get it done for all of them, and then be good to go for whenever I want to start on any of them. So those are my cross stitch goals. I also really hope to get a little bit more spinning. I know I say that often, but I have to give I need to give more time to my spinning wheel. I really do. And I will probably most likely work on the cushions that I have upstairs. My sister sent me the weaved back for it, and so I will try to assemble the front knitted and the back weaving of that and get this done, and then have my partner's office kind of done. And then I will also start the pair of socks that my sister and I kind of traded, that she was weaving the back of the cushion and I would make her a pair of socks in one of the club yarns from Edgehog that I got last summer. That is not quite my colors, but is fully hers. So I will start that as soon as I'm done with those socks as well. And I think that's that. So the last little segment of this episode will be kind of acquisition. Basically, it's needles acquisition. I've been looking for needles to change my sock needles for a bit. And you guys know that if you are a return viewer. Because I am not a fan of wooden needles. I couldn't get Chiagoos in a 2.5 millimeter in any of my local yarn shop. Maybe it's bad timing, maybe they do have them and it's just a coincidence that when I go they don't have it anymore, but I just couldn't find that, or even a 2.25. And so I was looking for a new knitting needle for socks purposes for a little bit now. I did debate it on maybe go with Hiya sharps, and I couldn't get the metal Hiya sharps. I could only get bamboo Hiya and things like that. And so, and I'm not a fan of bamboo either because I had a really bad experience with bamboo needles, and that is just an experience that I had. A lot of people knit with bamboo. A lot of people are saying that there's nothing wrong with bamboo. So if you want to try bamboo, by all means go ahead and do it. It just didn't work out for me. I think I just had a pair that had a defect in it, and I had a pair that had a defect in it, and because of that, it took me over a year to do my pair of socks. Because I'm not a fan of changing needles in the middle of a project. And so, I was looking into options. There was the signature needles that were there, but they were a little bit on the pricey side. And I ended up finding on Etsy the Chiagu Twist needles, which are basically the Chiagu for sock knitting. The cord is a little bit different than their normal cord, and their tip is the same though. They're just in the size smaller that you need for sock knitting. But they do sell like a kit of interchangeable twists. I am not going to use a 000 needle. I may one day. I may. But I'm not going to use it every day. And therefore, I didn't want to buy the pack because I'm not going to use... I'm going to use the 2.5. And possibly one other size if I need it for a special project. And because of that, I didn't want to spend the money on the entire kit for something that I wouldn't use necessarily at its full potential. So I found an Etsy shop that actually sell all of those separately. Isn't it amazing? So I got my 2.5 millimeter twist chiagu needle with a 37-inch cable from the twist group as well. The reason why I got 37, they had smaller ones, but I don't mind having a longer cable for my socks. I really don't. And having a longer cable will also allow me to use those for another project if I want to. Because if I do like that combo, I may purchase another size because I was planning on doing a Orenburg wedding shawl type. And the needles that I had for that are, there's a lot of memory in the cable, and because it's a lace detailed and so tiny and so delicate, it moves with it and it's not fun. So if I do really like those, I may just buy the size that I need, because I think it's a 1.5 or 2 that I would need for it, and I may just buy that needle and just use my cable for it. But I'm really looking forward to it. The cable is a little bit smaller than the normal chiagus that you find out there, but I'm trying to not lose all the pieces that goes with it. See how there's like no memory at all in those cables? And it's been rounded up in the pack for how long? And like way more flexible than the normal chiagu ones are. And I think this is just gonna be awesome. I really think so. This is a really long cable for sock, though, don't get me wrong. But like I say, I don't mind how long it is. I'll use it for something else. And I also bought from that same Etsy shop a 9-inch circular chiagu needle, because I've been looking for it for a really long time and I couldn't find anywhere where they were selling it for a price that I was willing to pay. And the ones that I found for the metal chiagu 2.5, because 2.5 is a really popular size, was really expensive. And they had great option and great prices. So 2.5, 9 inches, chiagu circulars, and I can't wait to try those either. So I think that I will knit my sister's socks on the twist, because I know that sometimes 9-inch kind of change a little bit of your gauge, and I've never knit a sock for her before, and I want to kind of try to limit the changes that could have happened to her sock, because we don't live in the same city, so we can't necessarily meet to try the sock on and see if it's okay. So I will keep those probably for my next Mystery Monthly sock, so for the one in June possibly, and I will keep those for her socks. Or if I'm really knitting through her socks like crazy and get it done before the end of the month and I have time to start another pair of socks, then I'll do it with this one. But realistically, I think it's going to be my May socks and her socks for the month of May. So this is all I have for you today. So shorter episodes for sure, but I think it's a better thing though, I believe. If you have any comments, please leave them below or send me private messages on here or Ravelry, or leave a comment on the today's episode thread on Ravelry. And I will see you again next time. Thank you everyone. Have a great day. Bye.